Hey guys, Grounded Critic here. Thanks for tuning into the channel. This is part 2 of my version of the DC universe. I told you I had 10 years planned out. The first video, we got into the first 3 years. So we're going to follow up with phase 2. Let's get into it. So let's get started with the movies. First movie up in year 4 is New Gods. So New Gods, we're starting off. It's going to be basically setting up, obviously, Highfather and New Genesis and Apokolips and Darkseid, and we're going to show them, and it's going to be all about this war that they fought for all these years, and then it ends with this peace treaty as the babies are swapped between the two sides, which is Orion and Mr. Miracle. So we've set that up. That this whole is just setting up. It's setting up Darkseid. It's setting up New Genesis. It's setting up some other things. But really, I want to just get into that whole, fourth world that was created. I want to just explore that. I want to get into it. I want it to be out there. Yeah, so that's going to be big budget, exciting, setting up all these characters. Takes place on their planets, and it kind of ends with their peace treaty is kind of completely dissolved and war is imminent. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to be our first sequel in the entirety of this universe, and it is going to be a sequel to Green Lantern called War of the Rings. Yes, it's a very Tolkien-esque kind of name. It's not necessarily my favorite, but it is what I came up with at the time. It will be picking up where the last one left off. Sinestro has started his own corps, right? He has found the yellow element, and he has started up the Yellow Lanterns, and he is starting a war with the Green Lanterns, and Hal is still trying to bring him back around, right? He hasn't totally given up on Sinestro, but they are in conflict and they are fighting each other and they're kind of doing their own things. And their battles keep escalating, and it is going to turn into all-out war, and it's going to be a problem. And then a bigger threat shows up in the Red Lanterns and Atrocitus, who is going to wipe out everyone. So because of it, the Red Lanterns show up in force. This whole other army shows up, and it is a mess, and they're just decimating everybody. And Sinestro and Hal realize that the only way that they have any chance is together. And so they're forced, these two former friends, now enemies, are forced to join forces to fend off against Atrocitus and the Red Lanterns. And so we are kind of left at the end of this where they've defeated the Red Lanterns. They've locked up Atrocitus. The battle's kind of ended, and they've both lost a lot on both sides. So the Green Lantern Corps is basically barely hanging on. The Yellow Lantern Corps, who had just started building up, is now basically barely hanging on. And the Red Lantern Corps is basically decimated. And so they're kind of left in pieces, and none of them have really the strength to be big elements in the universe on their own anymore. And so you're kind of left like, do we continue this fight and pick up where we left off, or are we kind of at a stalemate for now? And so you're kind of left in limbo with the different corps. So that's where that one ends. We would also introduce John Stewart in this one because Hal has become so important in fighting off the Yellow Lanterns and dealing with all this stuff, that the Guardians have introduced a new Green Lantern for the Sector for Earth, and that is John Stewart. And so we would introduce John Stewart in this movie, and he would end up helping out with the Green Lantern Corps. And at the end of the movie, he would be tasked with going back to Earth to keep control of things there, while Hal is stuck out in the universe. So Hal will not appear in the next Justice League movie. He is stuck out in the Green Lantern Corps, whereas John Stewart will appear in Justice League. So then we're on to the first TV show of phase 2, which is going to be Deadman. I love Deadman. I think he's a very interesting character, and he's a lot of fun. I picture this show, I think when you first sit there, you're like, okay, well, why does Deadman need his own show? I picture his show as essentially Quantum Leap, right? You have this hero who's jumping from person to person, taking over their bodies and helping them. This is a guy who's kind of corrupt and kind of a problem, and he's given a chance to redeem himself before he can move on to the afterlife. He's stuck here having to kind of redeem himself before he has the chance to move on. But throughout the show, he's kind of really just trying to find a way to cheat the system and get his body back and try to become human again. Like he doesn't, at first, he doesn't really care about the redemption part. He's really just trying to save himself. And throughout the course of the show, throughout helping all these people and trying to do enough good to move on, he realizes that he actually likes doing good and that he can do more good here. And so he decides, no, I'm going to actually stay and help people. And he becomes a hero that stays, and so each episode he's helping a different person, trying to figure out like what, how he as a ghost can, affect their lives and save them. So it could be a very interesting show. It could be kind of kind of a procedural, each week it's a different person, he's helping different people getting into their lives. Like I said, it's structured very much in the same vein as like Quantum Leap. I think it could be a lot of fun. Then we move on to the last movie of year 4, and that will be Dr. Fate. Basically, this is one of my favorite ones. I saw a lot of these I would love to see, but as soon as the idea came up, I said, this movie like needs to be made. Like I really, really want to see this. Basically, so the whole premise of this came from, I was reading this article and it talked about how Guillermo del Toro had approached Marvel years ago about making a period piece about Doctor Strange. Like I think it was set in the 1800s or something. And I just thought, a Guillermo del Toro superhero movie period piece, sign me up. I will throw money at the, like, just make this now. And because Marvel said, nah, peace out, we're not doing it, I'm doing it. I want to do it. So I would be like, if you can't get Guillermo del Toro, you at least get someone visually very similar. So it's set in the 1940s as well. It's a period piece. It's about Dr. Fate, and it is a kind of Cthulhu mystery. There's some kind of like ancient Atlantean deity that's like coming to Earth, and he's trying to flood the planet and all this kind of craziness. And this is your crossover with Aquaman. You have Aquaman show up in the movie 1940s, and he ends up helping Dr. Fate stop this, Atlantean otherworldly monster god thing coming through that's trying to kill everybody. That sounds awesome. I just want to see this freaking movie, man. Like a period piece, doing it could be a whole lot of fun. Very much like visually, when I made this concept art, it was perfect. It was, as soon as I saw it, I was like, this movie needs to be, like, someone needs to make this. It sounds fantastic. I'm super excited about it. Let me know in the comments if I'm just way off, but I think visually, this is the kind of distinct visuals and style that we would never get in the MCU, because everything has to kind of be its own, part of the whole. And because you give them just that little extra bit of freedom, you get these very cool, creative, out there ideas, visually distinct movies that you can make because of that. And this would be one of them. And I'd be so excited. Okay, we're on to year 5. And the first movie up is Wonder Woman Truth. This is based on a couple different comic books kind of meshed together. So the idea is it's a sequel. It's Wonder Woman. She's back. She's, helping everybody out. Things are going great. The lasso of truth breaks. It should not be able to break. It breaks. And so reality itself, the concept of truth, is broken. The villain would be Queen of Fables. Now, rather than her creating the storybook stuff, she is created because of it. Because truth as a concept is broken, basically fantasy elements become reality. And so this evil queen becomes reality. And so she's trying to like take over, and you have, a modern looking New York, and there's like castles and dragons and giant mushrooms and all these fantasy otherworldly elements just intermixed with reality, because those concepts cease to exist. And so it's Wonder Woman dealing with magic in a way that she's never had to. Like when she deals with magic, she deals with, Wonder Woman's not really, I don't think Wonder Woman's like a spells magic person. She is just inherently magical as a being, but she doesn't, in my version, doesn't understand how to like cast things and how to do magic. She's more like, oh, I have this sword and it's magical and I can go, rather than I cast all these spells on the sword so it can do these things. Like she doesn't understand that level of it. And so now she's kind of thrust into this magic in a different way. And she's realizing she's like not sure how to deal with it. There's just a lot of fun that you can have with this. Visually, it could be completely distinct. That was a huge part with when I wanted to do the sequels for a lot of these characters. I wanted to get them out of the comfort zone and move them away from where we'd seen them already. So that way, every movie of theirs will be visually distinct and visually different. I just want them to feel different. So if you watched just like Wonder Woman 1 and 2, you would watch them both and be like, wow, these feel very different, but still of the same franchise. And that was kind of the goal here. So her in the modern world, but now dealing with all these fantasy elements like intermixed. There's just an unlimited amount of things you can do with this concept. And I think it's just sounds awesome. So yeah, so that is Wonder Woman Truth. Next, we have Superman Remnant. And just like I said with Wonder Woman, we're trying to get them out of their comfort zone. This movie, Superman has decided at the end of the first movie, Superman was given information from Lex Luthor about where Krypton might actually be. So he's gone off into deep space to find Krypton. Along the way, he ends up finding Brainiac instead. And there's this huge fight with Brainiac. Turns out that the bottle city of Kandor, and in this version, it would be a digitized city of Kandor, Superman ends up fighting Brainiac. He ends up finding this digitized version where these people are still alive, and they would be in this version of Kandor. You find out that it is actually a city from Krypton, right? Kandor was a major city on Krypton that was digitized before Krypton was destroyed, and probably by Brainiac in this version, just because it just ties everything together. It's nice. It fits up well. They also did it in the cartoon shows, so it's a nice tie-in. But anyway, so Superman ends up going into the digitized version and finds out all these, potential Kryptonians are still alive. And one of them is Kara. And so this is how we get Supergirl. And throughout the course of the movie, he ends up finding a way to get out, but it's damaged. And the only person who makes it out other than him is Supergirl. And so the two of them end up having to fight to save their people. And so they defeat Brainiac, but Kandor is still digitized and they can't get anyone else out currently. And so Kara and Kal-El are on their own kind of together. And he ends up convincing her to come back with him to Earth. And so we've kind of set up Supergirl here. We defeated Brainiac. We've gone off on this space exploration. We've got him out of Metropolis. Back to Earth. Movie ends back to Earth, and we end up going back, and Superman goes to see Lex Luthor again. Because it turns out Superman basically tells Lex, he's like, did you know what I would find there? And basically, Lex didn't just send him there to get him to leave. He sent him there because he knew throughout, all his different radar readings and everything else that there was this planet destroying alien out there, and he was hoping that it would destroy Superman. And basically it was a win-win. So either Superman destroys this thing that might eventually come to Earth and destroy us, or it destroys Superman and he wins, right? And Lex Luthor beats Superman. So it's kind of a win-win either way. And so it's kind of left like Superman's like upset with him, but at the same time he managed to save Kara and these other people and took out this threat. But Lex clearly had bad intentions. But anyway, okay, so that is Superman Remnant. Then we move on to our second TV show of this wave, and that is going to be Lobo God Hunter. I wanted Lobo to have a TV show. I wanted to include Lobo in some way, but I didn't think, I didn't know if I had the capital and the space to just include Lobo, just to include him. So I wanted to tie him into a larger narrative. His show is the one that's going to only run for a set period of time. The premise is that after New Gods, Mr. Miracle had escaped. He had escaped Apokolips, which is part of why the whole peace treaty fell apart. Well, he left and he's on the run. And Apokolips hires Lobo through an intermediary. He doesn't know he's working for Apokolips necessarily, but they hire Lobo to hunt down Mr. Miracle. So this is a universe hopping, grungy kind of like TVMA Lobo going around to different planets. It's kind of almost what I thought Mandalorian was going to be, right? Like that first episode of Mandalorian, he's bounty hunting and he's taking guys out and he's going to hopping planets. And then they said, we're not doing that anymore. That's what this is. This is Lobo going planet to planet trying to catch Mr. Miracle. You have this guy, you have this god whose whole thing is that he's an escape artist. And then you hire a bounty hunter to go after him. It's Catch Me If You Can. It's like, it's that classic cat and mouse game. You have Barda show up and she's like, she ends up fighting Lobo. And of course he's hitting on her the whole time. Like there's so much fun stuff you can do with this as a concept. I would just love to watch it. And their back and forths would just be fantastic. So the concept's great. It ties into the whole Apokolips narrative that goes across through this whole phase. It's kind of the underlying current of this whole phase. And yeah, it would be fun and unique and of its own while still having something to do with everything else. So that is my setup for this TV show. And then for the final thing in year 5, we have Batman Resolute. This movie will be based on, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's Batman and Two-Face are in this road trip together. So the premise is Harvey Dent can be cured if he can get to this place, right? Like there is a cure for Harvey Dent, long story short. And so Bruce, Batman himself, is going to take Harvey Dent across the country to get him to this place because it is the only place where he could potentially be rid of Two-Face. But unfortunately, the Two-Face persona also knows about it and has put out a hit on Batman and himself. And so basically he puts this huge like $20 million bounty on however big the bounty is. It doesn't matter. It's this huge bounty and he puts it out for anybody. So like if anyone in America kills Batman and stops them, then they get the money. So you have basically Batman is now stuck. Everyone they run into, like the entire world is against them, right? Like there's this great scene. He's like in a diner and like the people in the diner start attacking him. for the money. The emotional core of it and how this ties into the other movies is, as I said, a lot of this is going to be Damien's arc as well. And so in Damien's arc, the first one is him just getting out of the cult. In this one, it's him, he grows to respect Batman. He doesn't himself get involved too much throughout the movie, at least through the main chunk of the movie. It's more him, when the movie starts and he realizes that there's this bounty against his father, he basically tells Batman, give up, you're never going to get there. The entire world is against you. You cannot stand against the world. And Batman proves him wrong. Batman is so resolute, and his morals say, like, look, I am going to save my old friend no matter what it takes. And even if the entire world is against me, even if I have no chance, I'm going to try anyway. And because of that, throughout this movie, he gains Damien's appreciation. Like, Damien comes to respect his father. A good point of reference for this movie is 3:10 to Yuma. It's one of my favorite movies, and it's this entire town is like, no one else will help Christian Bale's character get this criminal to the train. Like, no one in the world wants to help them. It's him. He was a coward. His son didn't care, like, didn't look up to his father at all, thought he was a complete coward. And now his father earns his respect throughout this course of, like, trying to go up against the world, And so I wanted to take that premise, and that is the emotional context of it. When Damien ends up jumping in to help, you'd have him wearing like a prototype, like the Under Armour of a Robin suit, but doesn't actually wear the R because he doesn't care about that. He just puts on whatever, the Under Armour essentially for a Robin suit just to go, and ends up helping his father. And so he's now on the path to being Robin. He's basically there, but it's like a proto Robin. He doesn't care about the trappings of it yet, but he is now on his father's side. He understands his father's quest for justice. And so while it's mostly a Batman Two-Face story, there is this huge undercurrent and father-son relationship that gets expanded on in this film. So that's Batman Resolute. Okay, now we go into year 6. This is the last year of this phase. So phase 1 was years 1 through 3. Phase 2 is years 4, 5, and 6. And we're starting off with Adam Strange. It might be strange that I included Adam Strange, as he's a very minor character and mostly no one gives a crap about Adam Strange. Myself, I didn't care that much about Adam Strange until I really looked into him. Let me just say this. John Carter of Mars is one of my favorite movies. I think it was massively underrated. I'm very sad that it never got a sequel and that it lost a bunch of money, because it is really, really good. The music's fantastic. The acting is decent. The premise is really good. And Adam Strange, if you look into it from the jump, was basically a ripoff of John Carter of Mars. It was meant to be that. It is a very similar premise. Imagine John Carter of Mars mixed with the Rocketeer, and then you already know what Adam Strange is. That's exactly what this movie would be. I love that. I love the concept of this guy from Earth who gets, like, there's this accidental teleportation to another planet, and he's intermixed with it where he never knows how long he's going to get to stay there. He has no control over it. Like, he's just, so he lands on this other planet. He helps save the planet of Ran. He falls in love. There's this tragic romance with him and this girl because, like, he gets pulled away for, it could be years. Like, he doesn't have any way to control it. It's perfect. It's tragic. It's romantic. It's exciting. It's pulp sci-fi. It feels different than the other films. Like, it as a film sounds really, really good. So that is the setup for this movie. That's what you do. And then you end it where things are growing great. Like, they've saved the world, and then he's teleported away, and they don't really even hardly get to say goodbye. Like, it's tragic. And you end the movie there on this kind of sad note, but also hopeful, because he knows he's going to find a way to get back to her somehow. That leads us right into Justice League Apokolips. Darkseid comes to Earth. He finds out that the answer to the anti-life equation exists on Earth. The answer to everything is here on Earth. So he starts this massive invasion of Earth. It's a huge team up. So basically every hero so far that we've basically seen, minus a few. So let me give you an example. So Superman and Supergirl are going to play a huge role in this. Like, this is her first part on Earth, and now she's having to defend it against this massive threat. Batman, you probably have Nightwing, maybe even Damian showing up to help out, at least for some of it. You've got, John Stewart Green Lantern. You've got Wonder Woman. You've got Flash. You've got all these characters teaming up Green Arrow, Black Canary, they're back. So basically everybody so far that we've seen, and then we have some that you don't expect, right? Dr. Fate wouldn't show up, but Aquaman would. In my version, the Atlanteans, and this is potentially comic book accurate, I couldn't find anything that says that it doesn't work, but I've seen people say, at least theorize that it could, that they age slower. So Aquaman ages a little bit slower. He's now looks like the 90s hook hand Aquaman because it's present day. So last time we saw him was the 40s and he looked all buttoned up and whatever. He's got the beard. He's kind of an angry, older, hook-handed Aquaman. And so he joins up to save Earth from this massive threat. Yeah, so it's this huge, massive battle with like basically almost everybody that we've had so far, barring a couple of exceptions like, you know, Deadman, Dr. Fate, whatever. Adam Strange would show up for a couple minutes and help save the day. And they'd be like, who's this guy with the rocket pack and the guns? Like, I don't know. So throughout the movie, it comes down to Superman and Supergirl end up going back, following Darkseid back to Apokolips to try to take him down. And Supergirl almost dies. Like, she gets wrecked, which is what the concept artwork shows. So it's like she gets almost totally killed and Superman just unleashes on Darkseid and beats him as bad as he possibly can. Because I really want that shot from the comic books where like he's carrying Supergirl, like it happened in the cartoon shows as well. Like it's just this iconic shot. It's Supergirl. It's a good arc for her too, because she's now like almost dying to save her new home after, you know, she's just come to Earth. She's just wanting to save it. Martian Manhunter would help out as well. I forgot to mention that. Martian Manhunter is a big part of this. He's a big part of the Justice League now. He's helping out, saving the day. But yes, so ends up Superman saves her. She doesn't die, but she gets horribly injured. I mean, that's going to play down the road. And then the big battle happens. They defeat the villains. Darkseid does not get the anti-life equation. In fact, he's mistaken about it. Everything led him to Earth, but it wasn't the anti-life equation. It was something else. But whatever it was, he unlocks it. It doesn't start now, but whatever he did on Earth, it unlocked this worse thing that's coming down the road that he originally thought was the anti-life equation. He realizes he's been duped. And so it ends, he's defeated. Apokolips is driven off of Earth. Adam Strange gets a boom tube, and the movie ends where him and I don't know, Batman or Green Arrow or somebody are having a conversation, and they basically are trying to figure out this boom tube so he can potentially use that to come back to Rand. So you get like a nice, you got the kind of sour but hopeful ending in Adam Strange, and now this gives you that little after, like, oh, you know what? He's gonna make it to her. Like, it's this nice like little extra part. So yes, so movie ends, big epic. Final movie of Phase 2 is The Flash Double Time. Now, all of the marketing is going to show the Flash with this new Flash, who's very clearly supposed to be Wally West. All of the marketing is going to show that these two Flashes are working together and they're fighting the Rogues. So it's these two Flashes and the Rogues are all over the place. There's now a whole bunch of them, and that's what the marketing shows. And it looks like it's going to be just this fun, hopeful movie, you know, just having fun. When you actually watch the movie's going to start. It's going to be these two Flashes are already friends. They've clearly known each other for a couple weeks, maybe a month or two. Barry doesn't know too much about this new Flash, but he's clearly helping out. They're taking out these Rogues together. Well, the first sign that something's wrong is you end up in the first movie, the finale takes place during, let's say, a set year, right? We'll just say 2026 or something, right? The year 2026 during Groundhog Day. So whenever the movie actually comes out, but it has to be like a holiday and it has to set at set year. This movie is going through, they're fighting these Rogues, things are going on. And then you see the newspaper headline that it's that same date. It's 2026 Groundhog Day. And so you're like, what's going on here? Are they stuck in a loop? Why aren't the things that happened in the first movie happening here? We find out throughout the course of the movie that this other Flash is starting to seem a little bit unhinged. And then those of us who know the comics at all are going to be figuring out pretty fast that this is not Wally West. This is Eobard Thawne, and that he's gone back in time to an earlier point and become best friends with the Flash. So this is not evil Eobard Thawne yet. This is the fan Thawne, right? He's gone back in time to be best friends with the Flash early on. They defeated the Thinker before this movie even starts. It's much easier. Like, everything's going great. And he becomes a little bit unhinged. And throughout the movie, he's becoming more and more fanatical and more nuts. And Barry's starting to realize there's something really off with this guy. And the final straw is when they're taking down some of the rogues, and this Flash just starts killing them because he doesn't care. Like he's out of it. He starts just murdering the rogues, and Barry's like, we don't need to kill these guys. What is wrong with you? And then that is the severing point where this guy becomes completely out of it. He's like this super fan, and he's gone completely nuts. He can't handle that the Flash is dressing him down. And so they start their like rivalry begins, and then it ends up Barry ends up needing help to take this guy out. So he ends up teaming up with Captain Cold. He's like, you need to help me take down the Flash because he's killing the rogues. Like, he's gone nuts, this other Flash. And so they kind of team up. They kind of stop Reverse Flash. And then the movie kind of ends where he's like, okay, I messed up. Like, I need to go back in time and we'll be best friends again. And so he starts going back in time. And this kind of leads to Reverse Flash killing his mom because he just goes so nuts. And it kind of escalates to the point where they're now going back in time, and Barry's, realizing time travel's possible and that he can do it. And so they both go back in time, and the movie ends with Reverse Flash getting beaten, but he's already killed Barry's mom, and Barry's trying to get back in time, and he's injured, and he ends up where he thinks he's got it back in time, and he lands, and there's like dirt and brushed up, and he looks around and realizes he's in the Old West. And we end the movie on a to be continued. And if we could get the rights to the Back to the Future soundtrack, it'd be perfect here. But I want to end right here where he's stuck in the Wild West. And yeah, so it ends on this kind of cliffhanger. He's trapped in the past, and Reverse Flash was kind of defeated, but he doesn't know what happened to him. And that's where we leave Barry Allen. And so we leave this whole phase on a bit of a cliffhanger. We've set up a lot of characters. We've set up a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces. And if I was watching, I would be excited to see where this goes next. But if you want to find out where it goes next, I do have another video coming out very soon. Again, please leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know, what did I get really wrong? What sounds cool? What would your ideas be? Yeah, let's talk about it. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.